Today, we'll go over Acumatica ERP, and we'll talk about the fixed assets workspace, and we'll go over managing fixed assets. Today's agenda, we'll start with a brief overview of fixed assets and the fixed assets form. We'll then go into a demonstration and convert a vendor bill to a fixed asset. We'll next reconcile a vendor bill to a fixed asset, and we'll show how depreciation is calculated and recorded. And we'll go over how to dispose of a fixed asset. And last, we'll take a look at the fixed asset report. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into Acumatica. And the bulk of our work today here, will be processed in the fixed asset workspace. Okay. And so we'll start off with a overview of the fixed assets form. And before we jump into that, I just want to make sure or make clear that the fact that only the appropriate accounting staff has access to this module. Nobody, just not anyone can make any changes or access the fixed asset module and make the adjustments that we'll go over today. So just wanted to make that clear. And so, like I say, we're going to first start with a overview of the fixed asset form. And so to find that form from the fixed asset workspace under profiles, uh, you'll select fixed assets. And there's the fixed assets form that opens, and this shows us um, all of the fixed assets that we currently have in the system. On the fixed asset form, that gives us a pretty good summary view of each fixed asset. It gives us the asset ID number. And of course, you see each one is hyperlinked, therefore we can drill down directly into any particular fixed asset. It gives us the description, asset class, date it was placed in service, also its original acquisition cost, its useful life in years, and the department where the fixed asset is housed, and lastly, the status of the fixed asset. Okay. And so now let's just go ahead and open a fixed asset report. So let's go ahead and open fixed asset number 16, which is computers. And it opens the fixed asset form for this particular fixed asset. And all the information about the fixed asset is housed here on this one page. Each tab provides different levels of information to be able to manage the fixed asset. And so first we'll talk about, and let's just jump in the where we are, the general tab. And with on the general tab under the asset summary, the first thing we'll see is asset class. And asset class is very important, and we'll hover over and just take a look at the definition of asset class. It lets us know that asset class to which the asset belongs. When you will fill in the appropriate asset class for a fixed asset, you are creating the system fills in many boxes with the settings of the class, therefore easing data entry. And it gives you a quick view that lets you know that the classes are defined on the fixed asset classes form. And that form, of course, can be found in the fixed asset workspace. Let's go ahead and close this out. Uh, and so in a nutshell, that basically means that, asset class, it actually defines all of the settings for a particular group of assets. And so, for instance, the group computers, uh, the asset class defines, of course, the useful life, the depreciable, its depreciable status is whether it's a tangible or intangible asset, and also it can also define its asset type. Okay, and so with that being said, let's just click, and if you let's click to the right of the asset class box, and this is going to open the fixed asset classes box. This gives us a view into the pre-configured defaulted settings for asset class ID computers. You see on the general tab, it lets us know the asset type. Of course, the depreciable and tangible check boxes are um, selected. It's pre-configured, useful life of 5 years. There are some, adjustments we can make if we wanted to use an accelerated depreciation method. We can select that, but we'll leave it like it is. On the depreciation tab, this lets us know the posting book that the depreciation will be posted to. Gives us the the depreciation method. It gives us the useful life. And then on the GL accounts tab, we see the pre-configured defaulted accounts that affect fixed assets. And this is and the sub accounts, the accumulated depreciation account, and the depreciation expense account is gain and loss account that will be affected on the sale of the asset if that ever took place. So let's go ahead and close this out. Yes. And next, we're going to jump into, I know we'll stay here because there's still some information we need to cover. So we see here the system pulls in the receipt date and the placed in service date. That's, of course, pulled in from the header section when we initially created the fixed asset. Its original acquisition cost, any salvage amount or replacement costs, if those items are applicable. It also gives us tracking information to let us know where the fixed asset is being housed by branch or building, by department, and then we can get as granular as the particular building, floor, room, and if we have a tag number assigned to it, um, we can enter that here. Okay. And so next, let's take a look at the balance tab. And the balance tab, this displays the overall financial status of the asset. And you'll see here the depreciation method is status, and in this case, it's active. Um, Depreciation is original acquisition cost, any accumulated depreciation, the net value at this present moment of the fixed asset, and also its useful life. And there you have that. And so next, let's take a look at the depreciation history tab. And here you get to get a view of the detailed depreciation information. You can take a look in the detailed depreciation information. You can see the entire schedule um, for the life of the particular fixed asset. And in this case, and also you can take a look and view the calculated depreciation versus the actual depreciation. And of course, we can use the calculated depreciation to set up recurring schedules um, for accumulated depreciation. Uh, and we want to automatically book those transactions. We, of course, can use the totals from the calculated portion of the depreciation to set those automatic transactions up to happen over the life of the fixed asset. And in the depreciation portion of the depreciated portion of the depreciation tab, you can see any accumulated depreciation that has been depreciated and its amount over time, uh, and what periods were affected. And for um, fixed assets that have longer depreciation schedules, to see the entirety of the schedule, you would use the scroll bar and move it over to the left to view the entirety of the schedule. And so next, let's go over the transactions history tab. And within the transactions history tab, you have access to any transactions that involve this, excuse me, this particular fixed asset. Uh, and here you can, of course, see the transaction date and period, the debit account, the credit account. So, of course, the transactions which were affected, the debit and credit account, the transaction type. And here you would see when the purchase and plus reconciliation plus transactions when the fixed asset was purchased and converted uh, and reconciled to a fixed asset. Also, we see the depreciation plus transaction that took place when the accumulated depreciation for transaction period 6/20/23 took place. Um, and let's just scroll over some. And under reference number, we can take a look at the actual fixed asset transactions. You see the system opens the fixed asset transactions form. And for this document date 7/1, we see the status was posted and the origin of this transaction was a transfer. Uh, and you can take a look at the details of it here. Okay. And also to the right under batch number, if we select the hyperlink, this opens the journal transaction form that then gives us a view of the journal transaction. And of course, on this transaction date, the effects to the fixed asset module. Um, and we see here the debits and credits for the purchase and the accumulated depreciation here. Okay, let's go ahead and close this journal transaction. And there you have it. So let's just take a brief pause and see where we are. And so in our agenda today, the first portion of it, we went over the overview of fixed assets. And in that overview of fixed assets, we took a look at the fixed assets form. We viewed the fixed assets form for a particular fixed asset, and we went over the a couple of tabs on the fixed asset form. One thing that we want to make clear is the fixed asset form houses all of the information for the fixed asset, so you can all of the information to maintain a fixed asset is contained on one page. And we went through what we believe are the most important tabs, which is, of course, the general settings tab, and there where we define our asset class. We take a look at the asset type, things like its original acquisition cost, so on and so forth. And then we took a look at the balance tab, and that displays the overall financial status of the asset. Uh, and then we went over the depreciation history tab, and that gives us a view into the detailed depreciation information. It also displayed the calculated versus recorded amounts of depreciation. And then lastly, we took a look at the transaction history tab, and we saw there that the transaction history tab housed all of the information, the transaction information that involved the fixed asset. We took a look at the transaction types, and which were um, purchasing plus, depreciation plus, and a number of other transactions. We also looked at the drill down under reference number to take a look at the fixed assets transaction form and view a list of the system generated fixed asset transactions. And we also were able to drill down into system generated journal transactions for that particular fixed asset. And so now our next portion will go into converting a vendor bill to a fixed asset. And so let's jump back into Acumatica, and how we convert an existing purchase to a fixed asset is you first must create a purchasing transaction. And there's a number of ways to do that. But the two most common would be through a journal transaction or a vendor bill. And so, with that being said, we will go over both of those both of those purchasing transaction creations. So, we'll create a journal transaction, and we'll also create a vendor bill. And so, with that being said, let's just go ahead and first create a journal transaction that will then convert to an existing purchase. Excuse me, will then convert to fixed asset. And so, the first thing we want to do is book our purchasing transaction. And so, in order to do that, and we'll have two tabs open so we can simultaneously take a view at processing one document and seeing it updated on on the corresponding screen. So let's first go ahead and create our journal transaction. So to do that, we would come to our finance workspace, journal transactions, new. In this case, we are going to say in the month of May, we purchased, and as a matter of fact, I don't know, we're going to say in the month of May, and let's just say May 12th, we purchased computers. And let's add a line item. And we want to, give me a second here. We want to book this to capital. And so there we have it. And I say we paid $3,500. Okay. And so then the other side of this transaction, we want to make sure that that we map this to our asset accrual account. So our asset accrual account, and let's enter it here for accrual purchases. And you see, once we entered our account, the description, of course, for this account uh, was defined in the description field, but Acumatica also, and let's just switch this side of the transaction because this should be a credit. And let's do away with that. And this should be the debit amount. Okay. And so there we have it. So we have both sides of our transaction book correct. We have our transaction date and period correct. So everything is, so now uh, we want to remove the hold and release this transaction. So there you have it. We first created a purchase and transaction, and we did that by creating a journal transaction to account for an existing purchase. And so now let's go over and convert that existing purchase to a fixed asset. And so in order to do that, from our fixed assets workspace, under processes, go to convert purchases to an asset. And let's go ahead and find our asset. And so before we even find our asset, let's just talk about where we are. So went through fixed assets. We opened our convert purchases to assets form. In the account box, the our accrued purchases account is defaulted to the account box. So you see our 15 our 115,000 account 01540's account for accrued purchases is defaulted. So therefore, the system automatically populates in their upper box any purchases that are mapped to this account. So in that case, we mapped our transaction of computer purchases uh, to our accrued purchases account so we can then convert it to a fixed asset. And that's where we are here. So to start the process of converting, we'll select the fixed asset we'd like to convert. We'll then specify the asset class. And in this case, we're looking at computers. So we'll select the computer asset class. And once selected, the asset class, you see the system then automatically populated down here the fixed asset as a purchasing transaction that'll be created. So let's select the department. And in this case, we'll select admin. And so there you have it. We have our conversion process, our fixed assets selected. We've selected our asset class and department. We've seen our asset has populated down here with the create asset checkbox selected. Um, we see the receipt date and transaction amount. And now let's just go ahead and in order to convert it, we'll select process. System opens the process dialog box. It lets us know that the transaction was processed successfully. Let's close out here. And there you see our fixed asset has disappeared. So let's let's view the converted purchase, And so to do that, let's go to our fixed assets workspace under profiles, fixed assets, and it will be the last asset we created. And there we have it. So we went through the process of how to convert an existing purchase to a new fixed asset. And let's just go ahead and go into the asset and take a look at it. And you see on the general tab, the asset class that we selected. And by selecting asset class, if you remember from the overview summary, it then selected useful life, depreciable, tangible, uh, the original acquisition costs, and all of that information, of course, was populated from the purchasing transaction that we created. You see here our tracking info, where, and this is what we selected in the conversion. So we selected the branch and department that the fixed asset will be housed. Let's go ahead to the balance tab. We get to take a look at the um, full financial status of the fixed asset. So we see here its status, its depreciable method, its original acquisition cost, uh, useful life, any depreciable, any accumulated depreciation. And of course, we just created this asset, so there would be no accumulated depreciation at this point. And so then let's go to the transactions tab. And we see that on release of and conversion of the existing purchases to a fixed asset, the system, once we process this, the system automatically generated transactions. And you can see under transaction type the transactions that were created, which was a purchasing plus and reconciliation plus transaction. We can, of course, come over here and take a look at the fixed asset transaction that involved this fixed asset, and also the journal transaction that was created upon release of the fixed asset. So let's go ahead and close this out. And then here on the reconciliation tab, you see up on release, uh, the system automatically reconciled the transaction to the existing purchase. Okay. And so there we have it, the first side of converting an existing purchase to a new fixed asset, from an existing purchase to a new fixed asset. And so the next portion of a transaction we'll look at is um, creating a purchase transaction by using a vendor bill. And so let's just go ahead and do that. Um, and in this case, in order to do that, the first thing we need to do is go ahead and create a vendor bill. And so in order to create a vendor bill, we go to our payables workspace, bills and adjustments, select new. We are going to, of course, say June 2nd, select the vendor, uh, computer supplies, and now let's select the date, June 2nd. Da da da. And what will we call this? Let's just say computers. Okay, let's go ahead and to the details tab, add a line. Uh, the transaction description, we're going to say these are computers. Okay, quantity, we're going to say 3, unit cost $1,000. And at this point in the creation of the bill, we must map this account to our accrual, to our asset accrual, fixed asset purchases accrual account. So let's go ahead and do that. And so there we have it. We have our bill set up. We're saying we purchased computers, 3 of them on date of June 2nd. We've mapped it to our accrued purchases of fixed assets account. Let's go ahead and save this. We'll go ahead and remove the hold and release it. We have it in open status. And so now we want to go ahead and convert this bill to a fixed asset. Okay. And so in order to do that, we'll come over to our fixed assets workspace. We'll go convert purchases to asset. Of course, we'll select the asset we'd like to convert. Same thing in asset class. We'll select computers. And you see, once we selected the asset class, by default, Acumatica then separated the fixed assets out by line. So as opposed to booking it as one fixed asset, the system took a look at the purchasing transaction and broke it out by quantity. So and transaction amount. So there we have 3 fixed assets. And so let's add department. We'll select admin. And there we have it. Create asset check bar box selected. All of the pertinent information. We see the system is prepared to make the purchasing plus transaction. And so let's go ahead and process. And okay, so we see that the system has processed our transaction. Let's go ahead to the fixed assets form. And there we have our 3 new fixed assets that we converted from a vendor bill. We can briefly, of course, go through the general tab and take a look at all of the information. And at this point, if we wanted to, for instance, send one computer to consulting, we'll save it, and there we have it. We could take a look, of course, at the balance. Gives us all the um, information, financial information pertaining to the fixed asset. Go to the reconciliation tab. Excuse me, not the, the transactions tab. And we take a look at the auto-generated transactions that happen on release of on release of the conversion of the purchase to a fixed asset. Okay, so there you have it. We went through the process of converting existing purchases to a fixed asset, and we went over it from 2 different angles. One, we used their journal transaction to post and then post an existing transaction and then convert that existing transaction to a fixed asset. We also then went in and took a look at um, how to convert a vendor bill uh, to a fixed asset. Okay. And so the last thing we'll take a look at is we want to reconcile the created fixed asset. And so in the case that uh, we've created an asset prior to receiving any bill. So in this case, we have these 5 computer desks, and we need to uh, reconcile this information to the bill. And so in order to do that, the first thing we need to do is on the transactions tab, we need to take a look at the fixed assets transactions, and we do that, and we see that they are still in the ballot status. So in order to, of course, start to manage this fixed asset, let's go ahead and release it. Oh, let's go back and let's see what we have here in our status. It says our status is on hold. And let's go ahead and remove the hold. And there we have it. So let's just go back to the transactions tab now and review. And let's release this transaction. Still not allowing us. Why is this so finicky? And let's come back here. And so what is our issue? Oh, let's go ahead and let's see if that is our issue. And no, that is not allowing us. What do we have here? Okay, so our status is active. Let's take a look at our transactions and our reconciliation. And let's go ahead. And there we have it. So we've saved it. And so now we want to reconcile this transaction. So to reconcile the transaction, and I guess we make sure it's saved. And let's just go back. It's saved, and it when we initially started the this fixed asset was still in the open status. So we needed to save and release, remove the hold and release the fixed asset. So then the status can be in the open status. And so now that it's in the open status, we can go ahead and reconcile the fixed asset to the AP bill. And so in this case, let's go ahead. So we have it all saved. And let's go now and create our vendor bill. So let's go to payables. Let's create a new bill. And this is actually the bill we have. And we see it's in the open status. Okay. It's booked to the, okay. So everything. And let's refresh our data. And we still cannot see our bill. And why is that? Let's go back. So, and let's go back. And when did we say we received this? Let's just go and say we receive a bill. June 14th. Let's remove the hold. The system is booked to, okay. Let's remove the hold. Let's release. Apply it. Let's get rid of this. Okay. And so now let's just create a new bill, start over, vendor. Uh, let's see what that vendor is. Fixed asset. Doesn't matter. Let's just use any vendor. Da, 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 da. Where art thou? Let's use you again. And the amount is $1,200. Uh, okay. Ta-da-ta. And this was created 6/2. And so let's just say we receive a bill on 6/23. Let's call this desk. Dot, dot. Let's call this desk. And we're going to say extended cost was 1,200. And let's map this to our accrued fixed asset purchases account. And let's go ahead and save it. Let's remove it from hold. And let's release this transaction. Let's refresh our data. And okay. Let's refresh the data over here. Okay, now let's attempt to reconcile. And there we have our transaction. So we're going through of course, once again, the reconciliation process of reconciling a fixed asset to existing fixed asset to the vendor bill in the case that we created the fixed asset prior to receiving the vendor bill. And so once again, we'll go to the reconciliation tab. We'll locate the vendor bill, and you see this is the bill. We'll select this checkbox to reconcile it, and then we'll select process. And I didn't select all of the checkboxes. I apologize. And what happened here? Did we miss a? I'm dying here. You're killing me. And so, oh, I know what it is. Let's just go ahead and refresh our data. And why is it not allowing me? Oh, transaction date is today, period. Everything is correct. Oh, we don't want to compress. That's what it is, huh? Huh. Okay. So let's go over to transactions. Let's see what unreleased transactions we have. That is posted. And so what unreleased transactions do we have? And let's go ahead and take a look. And there we have it. So the last portion, I'll say there in the reconciliation is saved. So we went through the reconciling of the created fixed asset. And now let's review the transactions history tab. And you can see the fixed asset transaction that was created, which was a reconciliation plus transaction. And let's take a look at the journal transaction, and there you see it. And let's take a look at the balances. So there you have it. Okay. And that was a little doozy. Yeah, well, that was pretty fun. You come back and and get everything squared up. So with that being said, let's just take a quick pause. Where we are, we went through the process of creating a vendor bill, of actually we went through the process of convert a vendor bill to a fixed asset. Then we went over the process of reconciling a vendor bill to a fixed asset, although took us a little longer than we thought it should. But sometimes showing the figuring out of a thing is always good. Um, but anyway, so we went through the process of reconciling a vendor bill to a fixed asset. And so now we'll take a look at how is depreciation calculated and recorded. Okay. And so now let's just go ahead and go back into Acumatica and to take a look at how depreciation is calculated and recorded. There's actually two different ways you can do it. So in this case, yeah, let's just select this fixed asset and we'll go to the depreciation tab. And if you wanted to calculate depreciation for a single item, you can do that here in the fixed assets form of the particular fixed asset. You'll come down to the depreciation tab, and so that way we can have a view of the depreciation schedule. Then up at the toolbar, let's go to the More menu. Under Processing, select Calculate Depreciation. Select that. The system will go through the process, and there you see um, it has calculated the depreciation for the entire life of the asset. Okay. And so there is the calculated portion of depreciation. And of course, I just kind of let me give me a second there. Some call. I'm sorry. Have a little drink of water. And so by selecting calculate depreciation, you then get a view of the calculated versus what has been depreciated over the life of the asset. Okay. And so now we've seen the calculating of depreciation, but let's go ahead and depreciate the item through uh, a depreciation period. So in order to do that, we'll come to fixed assets under the processes, calculate depreciation. Let's go ahead and open the calculate depreciation form. And within this form, there's you specify company. You can also specify book. And in some cases, you have different depreciation books because you keep up with depreciation maybe over a number of different methods for a particular fixed asset. And that could be in the case that for book purposes, you're using straight line, or for tax purposes, you're using a accelerated method. So in this case, let's just select the FIN book and then period, right? So we want to calculate depreciation out to, let's say, July, okay? And in this case, we are going to just take a look. And from here, of course, we can select all and then process all. Or in this case, we can select one item that we'd like to depreciate. And in the action box, once again, we can, like we did from the depreciation tab bar, we can take an action to only calculate only the depreciation. or we can select to calculate and depreciate at the same time the selected fixed asset. And so now, and of course, through here, you can narrow your search if, if you're a company that manages a number of fixed assets, you can, of course, narrow this search down by asset class. So in this case, we only want to see asset class computers, and we want to that are connected to the financial posting book, and that can be depreciated through period 723. So let's take a look at that, and you'll see our search parameters, of course, narrow uh, even more. So with that being said, we have the desk. We're going to depreciate out through, a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and depreciate it out through December 23 so we can get a real view of the calculated depreciation. So then with all of this information selected, we'll click process on the toolbar. Process and dialog box opens, lets us know by the green selection that the transaction processed correctly. Let's go ahead and close this out. Uh, and so now we want to view, of course, the depreciation. We can do that by going to the fixed assets, um, and then go ahead and let's select our item, go into the particular fixed asset on the depreciation tab. And there you see it along with calculated and then depreciated amount through period 1223. Okay. And so there you have it, two ways to calculate depreciation, and then a way that you can, from the calculate depreciation form, depreciate one item or multiple items. And you can depreciate them, of course, and sort them by class and a number of other search parameters. The next quick topic we'll go over is the transferring of assets. And so when you create a fixed asset, and we're in the convert uh, purchases to assets box, the only selection at that point we have under departments is the uh, admin department. But once the asset has been converted to from a purchase to a fixed asset, we showed that within the fixed asset form that you can very quickly uh, transfer the asset from any building, branch, department, floor, room, wherever that fixed asset is housed, you can then transfer its location on the fixed assets on the fixed assets form for that particular um, fixed asset. And there's another way that you can do it if you have a number of fixed assets that need to be transferred at one time. And you can do that here on the fixed assets tab under processes and open the transfer assets form. And you see here specifying the company transfer date and two boxes so you can transfer the asset from this branch. And of course, you can select and transfer to another branch, another department, from one department to another department. And and in cases, you can also transfer the asset from one asset class to the other. Okay. And let's just go back to our fixed asset workspace. And lastly, we'll talk about the disposing of assets and how do you dispose of assets. And there are two possible ways that you could dispose of assets. You can dispose of a particular asset directly on the fixed asset form. And let's just take a look at that. And say, for instance, I don't know, let's pick anything. And say, for instance, time has come. We've decided to sell this building. We're going to dispose of it. And how do we go about that? It's very simple. You open and of course, if it's only one fixed asset that you're attempting to dispose of, you'll come to fixed assets form. You'll open the particular fixed asset, and what were we using here? Got thrown off there a little bit. Oh, the building. There we go. Okay, so we're attempting to dispose of it. So we open the fixed assets form for this particular fixed asset. On the toolbar, we'll come to the More menu, and under Processing, select Dispose. The disposal parameters dialog box opens, and it's going to ask us some very pertinent information, which of course is what was the disposal date, and based on that disposal date, the system then populates the disposal period. Before disposal, this is asking us, would we like to depreciate the periods up until the date of disposal? And of course, you can always hover over if you're confused about what any box is asking you to do. You can hover over it and open the information. And that was actually for the proceeds amount. So let's close that. And you have a drop down. So we could have suspended the asset from the date of purchase to list disposal date, or we can dispose up into that to that time. Here is asking you the proceed amount. And in this case, let's just say 175,000. It's asking you the disposal method, and you select the checkbox. And we have one disposal method set up. There can be a number of disposal methods that affect different general ledger accounts. And you see, once we select our disposal method, our proceeds account and sub account are automatically uh, automatically defined, connected to our disposal method and connected to this general ledger account. So at that point, we'll select OK. All of this information is correct. Let's go ahead and select OK. The system then generates the disposal transactions. And although it generated the disposal transactions, uh, let's just take a look on the transactions tab and see what happened there. And so there you have it. It generated the transaction type sale disposal. Let's go and take a look at the fixed asset transactions. There you see it. Depreciation plus transaction. The depreciation adjustment, which was the accumulated depreciation from the date of purchase up until um, the date of disposal. Okay. And let's take a look at our journal transaction. And there you see it. The accumulated depreciation, the depreciation expense that we've accumulated so far. Here is the effects to our gain and loss on fixed asset disposal. All right, the effect in the accounts receivable accrual account, and of course the accumulated depreciation from the date of purchase of the asset until its disposal. You see here in the header area, the status is posted, transaction date, all of the information that we initially uh, configured in the disposal, the disposal method proceeds box. And so there you have it. And let's just go move on to the final portion of our demonstration. And the last portion will be uh, reports on how to view fixed assets. And so for me, the best report is in the fixed assets workspace under reports, which would be the first one, is the fixed asset balance report. Let's go ahead and select that report. And of course, you can define the parameters by class, department, custodian, posting book, so on and so forth. Or you can run the report wide open and run the report. And you see here, the report basically gives us much more of an overview than the fixed asset form. It actually gives us a little more information, like the accumulated depreciation, its net value, right? We can see the basis that we have in the asset at this moment. Um, of course, its original acquisition costs and current costs. We can see the last period when the item was depreciated, its depreciation method, whether or not it is depreciable. And you see for all depreciable items, the true is there. And of course, for land, which is non-depreciable, it has the false is useful life for depreciable items. Its status, whether it's active, has it been disposed, and its class and its posting book. And then also from this report, we can definitely dig directly into the fixed asset form for this particular um, fixed asset. Okay. And so there we went over how is depreciation calculated and recorded. We took a look at that. And then we very quickly seen how to dispose of a fixed asset when we dispose of the building. And then we also, once disposing of the asset, we took a look at the fixed asset transactions that were generated by the system upon release of the disposal transaction. We also took a look at the journal transaction that was generated by the system upon release of the disposal transaction. Uh, and lastly, we took a look at the fixed asset report. Within that report, we seen that it gave us a little more information than the actual fixed asset uh, summary form. On the fixed access report, it gives the report gave us things like accumulated depreciation, net value, status, um, and of course, some standard items like original acquisition costs, um, depreciation method, years and useful life, and whether or not the asset was depreciable or not. Okay. So with that being said, we've come to the ending portion of our demonstration. And so we want to go over what we covered in entirety. And what we covered in entirety is we started off with an overview of fixed assets in the fixed assets report. We then went through the demonstration of converting a vendor bill to a fixed asset. We also reconciled a vendor bill to a fixed asset. We took a look at two ways at how depreciation is calculated. And then we also took a look at how to then record a depreciation. We went over how to dispose of a fixed asset, and we concluded by going over the fixed asset report. Okay, and so, of course, with that being said, once again, my name is Abdul McWhorter, and I'm a consultant here at GRF CPAs and Advisors. And I thank you again for your time, and do enjoy the rest of your day.